The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
To scratch a major itch. So enjoy your fruity pebbles, you yabba dabba bitch.
The God Almighty! They've killed him! And CM Punk, and I am the voice of the voiceless.
Be the man! You gotta beat the man! Woo, woo, woo! You know it. I got okey doke by little Jimmy!
Live from the Pro Wrestling Report studios in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this is Monday Night Meltdown with your hosts, Damian Nelson and David Hero.
I'm proud to say we're doing things the Vince McMahon way.
That's the bottom line! What? Cause Stone Cold said so!
Bringing you all the latest news and views from professional wrestling. Monday Night Meltdown is on the air.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Monday Night Meltdown. It's Monday, April 30th, 2012. We're here live. Damian Nelson along with David Hero and Matthew Thomas talking about WWE RAW tonight right here on Blog Talk Radio. We're going to be taking your phone calls when we enter the phone zone near the end of the program. The number that you can call is 1-877-317-9772. Again, that's 877-317-9772. We've also got the live chat room up right here on Blog Talk Radio, where hundreds of you are discussing this broadcast and the Raw that aired tonight on the USA Network. You can also follow the Pro Wrestling Report on Twitter, at PWR Show on Twitter. Again, that's at PWR Show on Twitter. And finally, on Facebook, facebook.com/PWR Show. Facebook.com/PWR Show. So let's get right down to it and talk about a Raw that saw new champions crowned, divas fired, and matches made for Over the Limit. An active Raw tonight, including the opening segment, which saw Brock Lesnar confronted by Triple H and John Laurinaitis defending his decision after Triple H challenging last week's decision by Laurinaitis to honor the request of Brock Lesnar. So this led to a beatdown by Brock Lesnar on Triple H, and it resulted in a broken arm for Triple H after what looked to be one hell of a real kind of fight between those two men. Brock Lesnar is he's an absolute monster. And it was made that much more clear tonight because from the moment he got out there, all he looked like he wanted to do was fight. And not just fight, but hurt somebody. And ultimately, the person he would hurt would be Triple H. David Hero, your thoughts on that opening segment on WWE RAW tonight?
You know, I thought it was extremely well done. And, you know, Triple H comes out, and it just seems that Triple H always comes out when somebody's getting hot, getting over, and he wants to be a part of it. And usually Triple H is the guy that is one that gets over it. Well, this time he does it. He goes in a different direction, and he has Brock Lesnar take him out, which means down the road there's going to be a big money matchup between the two of those guys, and it's only a matter of time. I'm guessing that match might even happen at SummerSlam or even Survivor Series, as they're both looking for opponents for each other going into Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. But Brock Lesnar, Damien, like you said, he is a legitimate beast, a legitimate monster, and you know what? He is the one guy in wrestling I would hate to ever get in the ring with.
Indeed. And it's just so believable. It's just so real. And his history in the UFC definitely helps that. But let's not lose sight of the fact that when he was even in WWE before, for a while it was a short 2 years, we've talked about this, he dominated then as well. Matthew, your thoughts on that opening segment with Triple H, John Laurinaitis, and Brock Lesnar?
Well, I think you really hit the nail on the head, Damien, when you said he looks like he wants to hurt somebody. I mean, from the match with Cena last night to the opening segment of Raw, every time we're getting a chance to see Lesnar in the ring, it just consistently puts over what a monster this guy is. And the segment with Triple H tonight, as well as the match with Cena last night, it's almost like a legitimate fear for the person in the ring with him. He looks so brutal, and that was conveyed again in the opening segment of Raw tonight.
Wonder where it goes from here. Obviously, it's not going to be done, and obviously Brock Lesnar, they talked all night about the fact that he is seemingly probably gone from WWE. Obviously, that's not going to be the case, but a lot of fans, especially after last night's Extreme Rules, were wondering what the strategy was by WWE for allowing Brock Lesnar to lose that matchup to John Cena last night. And Matthew, I know you guys took a lot of the calls, actually all the calls last night on the Extreme Rules post show and heard some of that live. But after tonight, does it become more obvious why John Cena got the win last night and Brock Lesnar took the loss, David Hero?
Well, okay, Brock Lesnar, as much as we all wanted him to destroy John Cena and beat him, well, he did destroy him. He just didn't beat him. Brock Lesnar left the company 8 years ago, right? On his terms,
yeah.
Nobody else's terms, kind of spit in the face of Vince McMahon and the wrestling business on the way out, took his ball and went home. There was no way in his first match back was Vince McMahon and company going to reward him with a pinfall victory over their biggest star. Because what's to prevent Brock Lesnar from getting pissed and frustrated and saying, hey, you know what? I'm out of here. I just came in, beat your biggest star, and now his value goes up across the board. So it was right business. And, you know, Brock Lesnar didn't really lose. I mean, he beat himself. He got punched in the head with a chain and FU'd through or onto the steel stairs. So it's not like, you know, he was beaten by John Cena. There was a lot of other things involved. But you know what? That match was interesting. Brock Lesnar owned 90-95% of the match. He beat John Cena all over the place. And it pretty much gave the fans what they wanted to see. John Cena getting his butt whooped.
John Cena got his butt handed to him last night for that, as you said, 90+% of that matchup. And tonight, I think definitely it built intrigue for sure because we didn't get an answer as to what is going to happen with Brock Lesnar. And now John Laurinaitis has put himself in a matchup at Over the Limit, the next pay-per-view from WWE coming up in 3 weeks. That's how Raw ended. It seemed as if it would be an announcement that Lord Tensai would be the opponent for John Cena at Over the Limit, but then John Laurinaitis saying, no, your opponent is going to be me, followed by a beatdown executed by Tensai and John Laurinaitis. Matthew, how did that strike you with this matchup being announced and the GM, I guess, taking such an active role in the beatdown on John Cena at the end of the broadcast?
To be quite honest with you, it really seemed like it fell flat for me. For a Raw where you open as hot as you did, and then on a Raw where you also have the announcement that you're getting Daniel Bryan, CM Punk at the next pay-per-view, I really don't know why it ended with that segment. Maybe put it in the middle somewhere, but it really seemed to fall flat for me. I didn't know, when it came to the announcement of the opponent, I thought maybe there's somebody returning that I haven't thought of. I really didn't know where they were going to go from there. And then you bring in Tensai, and okay, it's something a little bit different there, but I don't know, anytime you have the GM get involved like this, it really seems like you're trying to dig deep and rehash, you know, some of that fire that was there with like an Austin McMahon, and I don't know, it really did not do a whole lot for me at all.
Well, how else would you end the show? I mean, you have Brock Lesnar, a guy that's really a three-quarter to a part-time player who might not even be at the next pay-per-view for all we know. I mean, it depends on how his schedule is set up. So you really can't end Raw with him standing tall. And you know what? I mean, I guess it makes sense. I mean, use Johnny Ace. I mean, he's a guy that hasn't been in the ring in quite some time, and now obviously he has a built-in, you know, bodyguard with Lord Tensai. I mean, you know Lord Tensai is going to be involved in that match somehow. And what they're doing is they're saving it for down the road because you can't go from Cena to Rock to Brock Cena, then to Cena Lord Tensai. If you throw in Johnny Ace, now there's that hashtag shenanigans factor that can be played, and it just keeps things a little more interesting. But, I mean, right now, next month's pay-per-view, your two matches that are signed is Johnny Ace and John Cena against, and then you have DBD and CM Punk. They need some more star power in this to make this pay-per-view worthwhile.
And the second matchup you talked about, which is for the WWE Championship, CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan, was the result of a Beat the Clock challenge, which occurred tonight, which saw the opening challenge matchup, which set the pace for the night at 4 minutes and 18 seconds. The Miz gets a win over his opponent last night on the pay-per-view pre-show, Santino Marella, the United States champion, and he would carry that all the way through until Randy Orton would take it in 4 minutes 16 seconds with a victory over Jack Swagger in what I thought was a great matchup for as short as it was between those two athletes. But between those two matchups, we saw Jericho versus The Big Show, which I guess, depending on which clock you were looking at, went longer than 4 minutes and 18 seconds, which was not the way it was announced as the original result. Seemingly some confusion there, and I think you got to say this. It's very difficult to hit those that match ending at the right time. I'm not defending it, believe you me, I'm not, because it didn't come off as good at all, and we didn't ever see any replays of it, which means they probably did not quite get it right.
The fact of the matter is you didn't make the count fast enough in the ring. I blame you.
I was stressed, and people were talking to my ear, the fans were loud, and it was difficult for me to follow along. But be that as it may, neither Jericho nor The Big Show were that guy, so I guess we have seen the
Thank
end
God,
of Jericho.
right? I mean, do we really want to see another Jericho-Punk match? I don't. I think that match
I would agree.
is over and done with. I mean, honestly, I like Chris Jericho. I think he is super talented. He brings a lot. He's creative in the ring. But if he goes back to Dancing with the Stars or whatever TV show he wants to do, I think it's fine. He can go and then come back later and try to figure something else out. But him coming back since the Royal Rumble has been nothing short of a complete mess. Because I don't know if CM Punk is better off today than he was at the end of December.
I think he is. But I also will say this. We were at Extreme Rules this past Sunday in Chicago. We were at Money in the Bank last July, whatever it was in Chicago, last July. And while I think his opponent had something to do with this, and I said this on the post show last night, the buzz wasn't there this time. The buzz for CM Punk was still incredibly strong, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't there. It wasn't epic.
You know what they could have done to have made Jericho a bigger adversary for Punk? Instead of Jericho running down Punk's family about the pill poppers and the drunken binges and whatever else, he should have just been out there, and they should have, because they got plenty of tape on Jericho, just show all the championships he has won over his career, all the belts he's won, all the accolades he's done. Show everyone why he calls himself the best in the world at what he does. Because otherwise, you know what, there's a lot of wrestling fans that have no idea about the career of Chris Jericho, and I think if they would have surrounded him with trophies and title belts and everything else, then I think it means more for the feud. But he came out in that Tron-ish jacket, and you really, he says he's the best in the world, even though he hasn't proven us anything as to why he is to some of the newer fans. I just think they could have done so much more with that, and they dropped the ball, and Jericho right now is a mid-card guy on Monday Night Raw.
There would be two more matchups that would happen during the Beat the Clock challenge, the other one of them being Kane versus the Great Khali. Well, enough said about that. They didn't beat the clock. But it would be Daniel Bryan beating the clock in a matchup with Jerry Lawler. And, Matthew, did I miss something? I don't understand why Jerry Lawler was Daniel Bryan's opponent tonight in this matchup.
It was quite a surprise. I didn't expect that either. I don't really know what they were trying to get out of it, other than maybe, I don't know, the yes thing has caught on so much. Maybe they're thinking if they put him in there with Jerry Lawler, although a fan favorite, not somebody that you really expect to, beat Daniel Bryan in a number one contenders match, maybe you get a little more of a vocal reaction from the crowd, was the only thing that I could figure. So, yeah, it was a definite shock to me as well.
As we said, it is Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk at Over the Limit. It is Daniel Bryan, the former World Heavyweight Champion, versus CM Punk, the current WWE Champion. Both men former Ring of Honor champions. And David Hero, we remember those matchups those two had on a couple of weeks of WWE RAW. This one could really be popular to the internet wrestling community, but will it be popular to the entire wrestling community? And I would have to argue first that the yes chants were very prominent last night and obviously prominent again tonight on Raw. So it's definitely more than just the interweb, if you will, that likes Daniel Bryan. But your initial thoughts on this match being made for Over the Limit, Punk versus Bryan?
I think it's going to be a great match. I think it's going to, it's going to be interesting because right now you're at the point, okay, we're going to go with these two guys. I think they're putting a lot of pressure on these two guys because they're going to, right now they feel that they're two of their biggest stars in the company. And what if they don't do a good pay-per-view buy rate? You know what I mean? Then what happened? I mean, this right now is the time for the Punks and the Danielsons who say that they're in the best to prove it. And let's see if they have that crossover star appeal and if they can pull a sexy pay-per-view buy rate. It's going to be interesting because if they don't do well, you got to wonder if Vinnie Mac and company will have patience to continue pushing them.
Well, we'll see what happens coming up in 3 weeks on pay-per-view at WWE Over the Limit, another short window between pay-per-views for WWE. And it seems as if the feedback we've gotten so far is that most of you overall really did enjoy Extreme Rules last night, even though it was really a bunch of WrestleMania rematches and Cena and Lesnar. Be that as it may, again, it's Punk versus Bryan at Over the Limit. A couple of other matchups that occurred tonight on WWE Raw. Brodus Clay getting the win over JTG. And Brodus Clay, after the matchup, brings a couple of young children, if you will, into the ring with him to dance. And I thought that was simply brilliant because what's it going to do? Make the kids love Brodus Clay because what are they going to want? To get in that ring and dance with him. I think it's a great move, and it really shows.
I am so trained whenever I hear that. What does everybody want? To go in a completely different direction. I'm so glad I was paying closer attention than just saying something off the top of my head.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
What does everybody want? I mean, come on, Al Snow's going to be in Milwaukee on Saturday. Yes, and you're talking about little kids and in the ring dancing, and then, see what I mean? See how you just take things and go in a certain direction with it?
Brie Bella and Nikki Bella were fired tonight, at least, announced on WWE.com, not in the typical way that they have announced releases, announcing that they were fired by Eve Torres, which seems more storyline-driven than anything else to me. I know, David Hero, you've been beating the horn of the fact that they are going to be released or they are leaving WWE. That could be the case. But this was also announced on WWE programming tonight, which is a bit of a twist from a real release or any real releases that they've done in the past. Your take on that announcement of the Bella's departure, David?
Well, they said that they were fired because all they talked about for half the show was, well, Brock Lesnar could be fired. Well, hey, let's make the girls, the guinea pig and see how well this goes over. So, they fired Brie and Nikki Bella. And, they are gone. They didn't renew their contracts. They're going to go do some other things on their own for a little while. And, well, hey, if they're gone, let's just fire them and so people know that we can fire people.
True, brand new tag team champions crowned tonight on Raw as well as Kofi Kingston and R-Truth defeated Primo and Epico. And we have new tag team champions, and not too many people cared because, it's the tag team division in WWE. And, I think that it's worth saying that over the course of the last 3 weeks or so, we have seen focus on the tag teams getting time at least on Raw. I mean, there's been tag team matchups, which is at least something more than what there has been, and I think that point has been missed. But now with Kofi and Truth being the tag champions, some are saying that maybe they have a manager or a third member of their team, and his name is Little Jimmy. This could be fun over the next few weeks with those two as tag team champions.
Do you remember when Bobby Heenan would walk to the ring with, like, that dog collar? You know what I mean? But there was no dog on it. What if they're able to have some type of gimmick where they can walk to the ring and have a belt walking with them? You know what I'm saying? Like how, if you're wrapped around like a little somebody, invisible friend or whatnot, it's kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, they are definitely slowly trying to reestablish the tag team division. You can see more of that actually happening on SmackDown than on Raw. But yeah, I mean, they're trying. I mean, they have people that are trying to put together some different tag teams and whatnot. I think they already have one of the best tag teams there. They just don't use them, and that's Jack Swagger and Dolph Ziggler. I think that is a better version of, let's say, the Hart Foundation, with Jack Swagger being a far better Jim Neidhart than Jim Neidhart could have been Jim Neidhart. But, I mean, young, talented, both guys can work. I don't see why they just don't let, Swagger and Dolph Ziggler run with the ball for a little while. That way it keeps Ziggler relevant where he's not doing jobs to Brodus Clay, and Swagger's not, putting over Randy Orton, and they can just build both guys into bigger stars than what they already are.
Well, that was tonight's WWE Raw. Overall, I think that they did do what they needed to do, which was move forward towards Over the Limit, but I do question the closing of the show because it started off so amazingly strong with Brock Lesnar, Triple H, and I think the ending is going to take a little more time to sink in than the beginning of the program did, but a newsworthy Raw for sure. Overall, Matthew, would you rate this Raw passing or failing tonight?
I would give it a pass. Like I said earlier, the ending was not exactly what I would have liked to have seen, but overall, when you step back and look at what came out of it, I think it was definitely a worthwhile Raw that definitely put us on the path towards Over the Limit.
And David Hero, overall, pass, fail?
Well, it was fine. I don't know if there's really a pass or a fail. It's probably just right down the middle. Nothing new came out of it. I mean, the biggest story was the firing of the Bellas and Triple H getting his arm broken. But that happened in the first 20 minutes with Brock Lesnar. And, yeah, they showed it a few times. But, I mean, what's the biggest story right now? Is it Johnny Ace against John Cena? Or is it Brock Lesnar breaking Triple H's arm? Or is it Daniel Bryan Danielson, the new number one contender? You got to decide.
Lesnar, Triple H.
Okay, so you think they should have gone off of TV with Lesnar breaking Triple H's arm? That's how the show should have ended. But if they do that, then they don't have enough time to tell everybody that his arm was broken. You have to wait a week, and they got to play it off through the website and SmackDown, which people really don't watch, and through Twitter. So they took the 2 hours to advance the character of Brock Lesnar by breaking Triple H's arm, and they kept repeating it over 2 hours. I think that they don't need quite as much time to do the John Cena Johnny Ace because the fans knew coming in that John Cena's arm was already messed up.
Let's go to the rest of the PWR broadcast team, and let's start with the social media diva, the lovely Linda Kay, with her thoughts on Raw tonight. Linda, what was the highlight of the night for you?
I don't know if I can pick one out. It was just such a strange Raw to me. I mean, coming off such a strong pay-per-view last night, I don't know, it felt it didn't quite meet the expectations I was hoping for. I mean, there were just tons of surprises, especially, a John versus John match at Over the Limit. I mean, after the way Extreme Rules ended last night and hearing those words from John Cena, it's just a perfect lead-in to some time off for him, but really surprised that he's now got this match against Johnny Ace in a few weeks. I don't know. I was just really surprised by that, and I guess I'm just really anxious to see how they're going to build up Over the Limit the next few weeks.
A John versus John match. Interesting, Linda. Thank you, Linda Kay. Let's continue around the horn here.
Sounds like that could be happening at the Motel 6, right?
No, the Hotel Motel Holiday Inn. Let's go to the man they call Meathead now. Meathead, your highlight of the night, if you will, from WWE Raw. What was your takeaway?
Well, first off, I'm just glad that I wasn't the only one that thought John versus John was going to be a match between gentlemen with dollar bills. I mean, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only one. The highlight, obviously, the Brock Lesnar segment in the beginning. I thought it was intense. I thought it was him going after Triple H, and you knew Triple H was going to end up taking the heat or the brunt for that. And Dave is right with here's a guy that's red hot. Let's throw Triple H in there. Triple H is going to wiggle his way in there somehow. The low light, it's just you know what Brock Lesnar kind of reminds me of. He's like Scott Steiner 2012, unpredictable, kind of like a caged animal, and you think he's going to mentally snap on somebody. But the low light it's the tag teams. I'm bored with it. I mean, I want to see more. They're not really doing anything. So what? The belt's changed. Is that going to mean anything next week or the week after?
It's interesting. We spent some time with Matt Hardy and Billy Gunn last night. David Hero, Linda, and myself, and that was a question that came up from one of the fans that was at the party with them. And their answers, it was essentially that tag team wrestling went away with them. And when you think about it, I hadn't really heard that. You may think it's a self-serving thing. When you really think about it, it's true. The focus was gone, and as Billy Gunn said, now people are just thrown together, and they're expected to be a tag team when they've got no chemistry. And the other key point, which I think Matt Hardy made this one, David Hero, is everybody's trying to still get over as a singles wrestler, and they're still all trying to work for themselves individually, even in these clumped-together tag teams, which is vastly different from the philosophies of the days of old. So some interesting discussion, of course, on the state of tag team wrestling right now. Thank you very much, Meathead, for your thoughts and bringing that up. I believe we are going to take a brief timeout, and when we come back, we're going to be entering the phone zone, getting your calls and comments on tonight's WWE RAW. This is the Pro Wrestling Report Monday Night Meltdown. We'll be back right after this.
Monday Night Meltdown continues after this, live on Blog Talk Radio. Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now. Missed an episode on the Pro Wrestling Report? Thanks, pal. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and take the show with you wherever you go, even in the bathroom. You're listening to Monday Night Meltdown live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and broadcasting worldwide on Blog Talk Radio. Subscribe to the Pro Wrestling Report on YouTube. We promise we'll never rickroll you, but we might just chokeslam you. Click the subscribe button now and be part of the revolution. There's only one place to get the latest from pro wrestling, including the only place to get 100% verified wrestling news. PWRshow.com. PWRshow.com, where you'll never find pop-ups or misleading headlines. Watch or listen to all of our latest TV and radio broadcasts on demand, and get caught up on wrestling news between episodes. PWRshow.com is the cleanest, friendliest, and most fan-friendly source for wrestling news on the web. This is the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, real. The Monday Night Meltdown phone zone is now open. Give us a call live at 1-877-317-9772. And be sure to press 1 to get in where you fit in and be part of tonight's live show. We'll call on you by your area code, and when you hear it, tell us your name and where you're calling from. Then proceed with your question or comment.
Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report, Monday Night Meltdown. We're live Monday, April 30th, 2012. Damian Nelson along with Matthew Thomas and David Octavius of February C. Legend Backyard, one-time Hall of Famer Hero. And, we are right after Extreme Rules. We've got our first first points issued in the 2012 Pro Wrestling Report draft, and I've received the tally sheet from the interns. And David Hero, I'd like to congratulate you on what will be a short-lived victory, as you did achieve 220 points last night at the pay-per-view. Congratulations on that. That is, and the Nelson family was able to rack up 100 points last night in the draft. So it's 220 to 100 early on in the draft. Now, just for some perspective, last year at this time, David Hero, which actually started with the WWE draft, which occurred 1 week after the PWR draft, it was almost neck and neck with the Nelson family at 140 points and the Super Friends at 120 points.
Hold on. And the reason why that was is because you threw all their draft show points into that thing, which was never a part of the deal in the first place.
I just said it was the WWE draft, and next I was going to move on to a like comparison, which is last year's WWE Extreme Rules, where the Nelson family gained 165 points versus the Super Friends' 115 points. We'll see what happens over the course of the next few months. Of course, the next time points are granted will be for the next pay-per-view offering from either WWE or TNA. But enough about that. Let's move on and go into the phone zone, and let's go to our first caller, who comes to us from Michigan. David, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report, Monday Meltdown.
Hey, how's everyone doing tonight?
Tremendous.
I'm fantastic. I'm in the first place. How could I not be fantastic?
Well, I just want to say it's a great time to be a wrestling fan again, I think. I mean, last night was a worth buying pay-per-view, which I did buy it. And, I mean, I'm excited to find out about Daniel Bryan and CM Punk. So I'm going to buy that pay-per-view just to see that match alone.
There's no doubt it's going to be a great wrestling matchup. They will step it up. They will deliver in that ring. There is absolutely no doubt about that. All right. Well, David, thank you very much for that call from out of Michigan. Let's continue on the phones, and let's go to our next caller, who comes to us from Miami, Florida, side of WrestleMania 28. Brian, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hey, guys. How are you guys doing tonight?
Hey, Brian.
What's going on, Brian?
All right. I have one comment, and I have one question. My comment is about the whole Brock Lesnar situation. I think tonight he went a little bit too far with the whole Triple H, breaking his arm and everything. That I think he went a little bit too far on, and it wasn't really the type of thing that I would really want to focus on. Now, my question is about. I did see the pay-per-view, the Randy Orton and Kane match. That I thought was really good. But do you see that continuing on any time on until WrestleMania comes next year, or do you see that stopping any time soon?
Thank you very much for that call, Brian. I'll let you, David and Matthew, take this question.
Yeah, I thought it was a very, very good match as well, and the feud between the two, both matches I thought were very well done. I felt that the story has been lacking a little bit. It seemed to me like it was kind of thrown together there pretty quick prior to WrestleMania. Maybe they get another month or so out of it, but certainly anything long-term, much less going to WrestleMania next year, I think that maybe a month or so left, but I don't think you're going to get much more than that out of the story.
Well,
Thank you for that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, David.
Well, when I heard that Kane versus Randy Orton was going to start the show, I got nervous because I'm thinking, wow, I don't know if this is the right match to get things going. And they did. I mean, by them going around the arena and fighting all over the place. And, yeah, when you fight outside the ring, there's not a whole lot you can do. But they got everybody involved in that match. People were on their feet, where they were watching, where they were yelling, and they were screaming. And they did a great job of telling a story. And it was brutal, and it was vicious, and it was truly a Falls Count Anywhere match. And they did a good job. And, kudos to Randy Orton and to Kane, both guys that are great workers, that have been around, that have headlined, and they've been world champions. They put on a hell of a show.
Thank you for that call, Brian, from down in Miami. Let's go now to Jackson, Mississippi. Kevin, you're live.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm turning full-fledged heel right now. I got to turn heel because Super Cena had to win. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but Cena sucks, and y'all know how I feel about him. And also, the other thing I was marked out on was the fact that we thought Karma was going to come out, and Layla came out, and everybody at the sports bar I watched the pay-per-view with was like jaws dropped, and all the guys went to take a, piss break. That pay-per-view was all right. I mean, we marked out for Daniel Bryan, and we had the thing going, but when Cena won, we were dead. That's all I have for tonight.
All right, well, thank you for that call, Kevin, from down in Jackson, Mississippi. You know, I sent this out via tweet tonight, we've talked a lot about John Cena on this program and all of our other programs, and one thing that, there was no doubt that was the pure definition of Super Cena last night if you simply look at it from that perspective. But if nothing else, John Cena is sincere. I think the words that he shared last night after the pay-per-view were sincere. I think that if you look at the fact that he, the number one guy in the company, not so much argument can be played to that, went out there and just got destroyed, absolutely destroyed last night. One word you never hear when it pertains to John Cena is ego. One word you do hear is, boredom, because a lot of people get tired of him. A lot of people get tired of it. I think that if you really look at the playing field in WWE, it's been leveled more so than it was over the course of the last few years. You've got some people talking about why did Triple H come back? He shouldn't have been involved in this whole thing. Well, I guess the question is, if not Triple H, then who else could Brock Lesnar have attacked tonight that made sense, that would have had as much impact as Triple H? So as it pertains to John Cena, yes, it was Super Cena last night. I did not like it initially either. But again, if you step back and look at the match overall, I think it was sensible. And I think it did what it needed to do. And Brock Lesnar, he's not lost a glimmer of his luster as a result of last night's matchup, because he proved, firstly, he can get back into a WWE ring. Secondly, he is a tough guy. Thirdly, that he will do business in that ring. All those things happened in that matchup last night. And to the point of Layla's return and not being Karma, I took great notice of the fact that the endorsed Eve said, oh, by the way, to Beth Phoenix, that her replacement would not be Karma. Thus, I guess they probably had to do that, David, or else Layla would have gotten not just less of a reaction, but maybe booed out of the building when she was revealed as the person that was replacing Beth Phoenix.
You know, I don't know, because the fans like Layla. You know, she's been fan-friendly, and you know what? Maybe Karma just isn't ready right now. But I think, who else was there? I mean, if it's not Karma that comes out and destroys him, I guess Layla is a good option. It's just you can tell that she seemed nervous or had ring rust or whatnot because she was going a million miles an hour in the ring.
And I'd like to thank Kevin from down in Jackson for that call. And let's continue on the phones and go to Jason, who's calling us from Detroit. Jason, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Yeah, how you guys doing? I'd just like to say I didn't see the pay-per-view last night, but Raw was hot the first 20 minutes with Brock Lesnar breaking Triple H's arm. Seemed very real, so I could go with that. Anything felt a little flat for me. It was okay, but it seemed like Vince McMahon against Austin again. You know, it's like a rewritten storyline. And I have to say, I got a little bit more respect for Cena after hearing his interview after that pay-per-view, but I still don't like him, but I got to respect the guy as a worker, and I hope he loses to Johnny Ace. And one more thing I have to say, it's a shame that Dolph Ziggler was not on the program. It's like a waste of talent. Put that guy back on the program in the tag team. Like David Hero said, they remind me of the Dream Team. Jack Swagger's BK's Valentine. And that's all I like to say, man. Y'all have a good night.
All right. Oh, thank you so much for that call, Jason from Detroit. This is going to be an interesting matchup between Johnny Ace and John Cena. And I question this. John Cena clearly said last night he was taking time off. Or did I miss something?
Yeah, it seemed like you said that last night he was taking some time off.
Yet now he's got this match with John Laurinaitis at Over the Limit. I'm confused as it pertains to that, but that's going to be, as was said earlier, absolutely full of shenanigans. I mean, heck, Tensai's already involved, and no time recently has anybody gotten the chance to see John Laurinaitis wrestle in a wrestling matchup. So that in and of itself is going to be comical. And I would be surprised if Johnny Ace never stepped in the ring. Maybe over the course of the next couple of weeks, we're going to see his supporters come and get lined up in the matchup between he and John Cena, and maybe that's how John Cena takes that time off. But over the should be interesting.
Damien, you see how they're beating John Cena down. I mean, Brock Lesnar did some damage last night. Now tonight they work on the arm. Every week they're going to work on a body part so that when John Cena gets to the ring, he's going to be damn near wheeled down there in a wheelchair.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. But you know what? It's all good discussion because there's a lot going on in WWE right now. And as I said earlier, what was one of the complaints we'd hear recently, or we'd hear frequently? Same 5 guys for 5 years, blah, 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 blah. You can't say that now. I mean, look at all the new characters and new dynamics that are being introduced into WWE, and there's general buzz there. General buzz over professional wrestling, general buzz over what's happening on the WWE side of things, and you can't deny that. They've just got to maintain that momentum. And by the way, they're coming up this Wednesday on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Wednesday night. I think I have the answer. I think I have figured out that last piece they need to continue establishing those big stars and making people what they can be in WWE. So tune in Primetime Wednesday night as we discuss that. That element of professional wrestling.
Hey, Damien.
Again, that's available at PWRshow.com. David.
Was Zack Ryder on Raw tonight?
Was Zack Ryder on Raw tonight? If he was, I certainly didn't see him.
Amazing, isn't it?
Why, that he's on your team and he's nowhere to be seen?
Oh, come on. Let's not start that up again. I mean, I had nothing to do with that. But it's just, he was involved in the match last night with Randy Orton and Kane. Why wouldn't Zack Ryder be the guy that was working with Kane tonight?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They put him in the pay-per-view in one of the big matches, and then tonight he's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. Well, let's continue on the phones, ladies and gentlemen, and let's go to our next caller, who is going to be coming to us from South Bend, Indiana. Rob, you're live here on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hey, what's going on, my fellow super friend?
Hey, my man.
2 things. One, you were talking about why Zack Ryder wasn't paired with Kane. After Extreme Rules, if Zack Ryder would have paired up with Kane, then Kane would have been the number 1 contender.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
He would have beat Zack Ryder in 40 seconds?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as the closing segment, Matthew brought up that maybe they're trying to do Austin McMahon again. Well, the segment ruined the suspension of disbelief for me. My little brother brought up the fact, he's not the guy in charge. He can be fired. And that was the beauty of McMahon and Austin. You knew McMahon owned the company and could pretty much do whatever he wanted. With Laurinaitis, you know that he's not the top guy in charge, that he has to answer to boards of directors and whatever. So it really, I stopped believing it when Laurinaitis started smashing Cena's arm with the chair.
Okay.
And
well,
that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much for that call. Sorry about that delay there, Rob. I was looking at some interesting news that was coming across there. But be that as it may, as you said, David, here earlier, they're attacking body parts, and maybe that's the way they're going to go, continue weakening Cena. But if his arm was already injured and he took how's he going to have a match in 3 weeks? Oh, well, I forgot. He recovers quite swiftly.
He does, man. He just, he's Super Cena.
Well, that is our final caller of the night. I want to thank everybody for calling, including those of you on hold who we're not going to be able to get to. Only a couple of minutes of showtime left. I think that tonight's Raw, last night's Extreme Rules, even back up to the beginning of the month at WrestleMania. WWE's got some momentum. Wrestling has some momentum. Brock Lesnar is back. You've got a pay-per-view coming up now where CM Punk is going to be defending his championship against Daniel Bryan. Randy Orton is crawling back up the ladder, if you will, at WWE. The Miz gets a win tonight. Triple H is back, if you will. I haven't seen him since WrestleMania, and, he's taking on, or you got to wonder when that matchup might occur between he and Brock Lesnar. There's a general buzz surrounding professional wrestling. The only question I have is, how do they keep it? How do they keep it going forward, and how do they maintain the momentum? Because I still, as much as I enjoyed it last night, I still feel that matchup between Brock Lesnar and John Cena happened entirely too early. I would venture to say that they could have even made that matchup as far away as SummerSlam and even as far away as next year's WrestleMania. The point was proven. Granted, you'll never have another character as dynamic as The Rock, but the point was proven in all the business results of WrestleMania that it wasn't a bad thing to announce that main event matchup 1 year out and really not pay very much attention to it again until the fall. It worked. And I thought we'd see that strategy again. And I think Cena-Lesnar is a big enough matchup where that could happen. And maybe that is the case. And maybe it will be announced. Who knows? But they've got to maintain that momentum that they gained with WrestleMania and all the audience that they had for that. If you look at the ratings for Raw week to week, they've been doing decent. They've been doing somewhat better than they have in the weeks before WrestleMania, which is always a good sign. So the conversation will continue throughout the week as we bring you our 2 weekly episodes of the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Television. It's going to be on Wednesday night, of course, and then again on Saturday night. And coming up this Saturday night on the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime TV on My24 Milwaukee, we've got part 1 of a 3-part interview with Billy Gunn. Sat down with Billy Gunn a little while back, and we talked about his life inside the ring, his life outside the ring. And I got to tell you this, and David Hero, you could speak to it as well, spending some time with Billy over the last few weeks, seeing him a couple of times, including over the course of this past weekend. Billy's in a great place right now. And you're going to hear about some of the reasons why he wasn't about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, and the reason why he is now on the Pro Wrestling Report starting this Saturday night on My24 Milwaukee. I want to give special thanks out to all of you who listened to the post show last night for Extreme Rules, and thank you to Matthew and Meathead for taking the hosting duties over last night as we were navigating out of that trash hole arena called the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois.
Well, that's pretty hateful.
I hate that building. It is a great atmosphere. It's great when you're inside it watching the show, but getting in it, getting out of it, going to concessions, going to the bathroom, nothing's good about the place. That's all I'm saying. But be that as it may, a good show still. And again, thanks to Matthew and Meathead for covering last night. With that in mind, we are going to close out the show and invite you to join us on Wednesday for PWR Primetime Wednesday night. For Matthew Thomas, Linda Cade, the man they call Meathead, and David Hero, this is Damian Nelson. And thank you so much for tuning in to PWR Monday Night Meltdown. We'll see you again Wednesday night.
This is the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, real.